Coming up on Global Business, Chinese Commerce Minister Wang Wentao reassures continued welcome for U.S.-funded firms to develop in the country. U.S. President Joe Biden rejects Republicans' demand for spending cuts amid negotiations to avoid debt defaults. And Kunming hosts special events to raise international awareness about the species extinction crisis. From CGTN headquarters in Beijing, this is Global Business. I'm Zheng Junfeng. China remains committed to welcoming American companies to invest and do business in the country as the government places great importance on attracting foreign investment for high-quality economic development. Speaking at a seminar on Monday, Chinese Commerce Minister Wang Wentao reassures attendees that China's economy is steadily recovering and there are ample opportunities for businesses worldwide, including American companies in the Chinese market. Among the seminar participants were representatives from the American Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai, Johnson & Johnson, and 3M. As China's economy continues to grow, global insurers are expanding their footprints in the country and looking beyond insurance sales. Some are even reaching out to make investments. Our reporter Cheng Tong spoke with one of these insurers to gain insights into this trend.
Sitting along the Huangpu River, looking at the beauty of Shanghai's financial district Lujiazui, this property project in the city's northbound is expected to be completed in the first half of this year.
This plot will become a commercial complex with a shopping mall, an office building, and a grand theater. One of the major investors behind the project is not a developer, but an insurance company that wants to diversify its investment portfolio in China.
Global insurance firm AIA put some $1.3 billion into the project. This investment project has been the biggest since the firm was incorporated as the first wholly foreign-owned life insurance company in China in 2020.
China market is the best market across the world, especially in terms of the insurance. We have full confidence in the future growth of the China insurance market. And the second thing actually is in the confidence of Shanghai, especially in the northbound area. We have observed the remarkable development of this area. We believe the northbound area will be another regional hub of the commercial development.
AIA is not the only insurer that is expanding investments. China's Ping An Life Insurance has invested in 4 property projects so far this year. But experts say AIA's move shows foreign investors' confidence in the China market.
It shows the Chinese government and the Shanghai government welcome foreign assets and they are willing to facilitate foreign insurance companies in China. In addition, AIA's huge input into this project shows insurers' confidence in Shanghai and in China.
Shanghai has set a goal to attract foreign investments worth some $24 billion this year. It's also hoping to attract foreign companies to set up 60 regional headquarters and 25 R&D centers here. Chen Tong, CGTN, Shanghai.
Projects worth tens of billions of US dollars have been signed at the Western China International Fair for Investment and Trade that has just been held in southwest China's Chongqing. The fair attracted nearly 1,000 enterprises from 38 countries and regions. Our reporter Guo Tianqi has more.
Joining hands with the West for a bright future was the theme of the 5th Western China International Fair for Investment and Trade that ended in Chongqing on Sunday. The fair was designed to enhance and highlight the opening up efforts of Western China. 88 major projects have been signed with a record total value of about $42 billion. Sichuan and Gansu were the guest provinces, while Malaysia was invited as the guest country.
That we are participating, and obviously this is the first time we're the guest country of honor, which is obviously a very big honor for Malaysia. And we have with us about 34 companies, including 6 universities, as well as companies offering products, for example, cosmetics, food, mainly food. which includes palm oil, durians, bird's nests, coffee, things which we've been exporting to China for a long time.
For investors, Western China is rich in natural resources and has huge market potential. There has also been continuous improvement of infrastructure in this area, while investors increasingly interested in the digital economy, new energy vehicles, intelligent manufacturing, and clean energy projects. And some are looking to further increase sales in Western China.
Since last year, around 3.14 million ton of palm oil and palm oil product has been exported to China, value of around 2.31 million RMB. We could actually take the advantage of Chongqing being in the western part of China. It's a landlocked area where we have the connection, and this is where we hope the collaboration with Chongqing will help us to promote more of the palm oil product to the what we call the western part of China.
Companies at the Chongqing Investment and Trade Fair includes those involved in electric information, equipment manufacturing, advanced materials, energy, chemicals, medicine, and health industries. Forums and activities held during the fair included some focusing on the construction of the new international land-sea corridor connecting western provinces of China to ASEAN countries and to the world. Guo Tianqi, CGTN.
Moving on to some headlines that we're tracking this hour. China's non-financial outbound direct investment, which excludes financial investment, rose 26.6% in yuan terms during the first 4 months of the year on a yearly basis, according to the Commerce Ministry. U.S. chipmaker Micron Technology has failed a national security probe in China. The Foreign Ministry of China responded that the investigation was aimed at protecting the country's information infrastructure and it was necessary to safeguard national security. Meanwhile, the People's Bank of China, the central bank, has again kept its key lending rate guidance, or LPR, at 3.65% for the 9th straight month. The 5-year LPR guidance for mortgage rate has also remained unchanged from last August. You're watching Global Business, more to come after break. U.S. President Joe Biden rejects Republicans' demand for spending cuts amid negotiations to avoid debt default.
.360-degree profiles of industry movers and shakers, tech mavericks, and policymakers. We drill down on their success. We ask how they set strategy and how they navigate in an increasingly competitive market. Real talk, real business. Join the conversation. Biz Talk, only on CGTN.
U.S. President Joe Biden has rejected Republicans' demand for spending cuts as unacceptable in negotiations to avoid a U.S. debt default. The Treasury Department has warned that June 1st remains a hard deadline for raising the federal debt limit. Biden and House Republicans will continue their debt talks on Monday to try to clinch a deal. Owen Fairclough has the latest.
Leaving the G7 summit in Japan to tackle a looming debt crisis back at home, US President Joe Biden had this warning for his Republican opponents.
We put forward a proposal that cuts spending by more than $1 trillion, on top of the nearly $3 trillion in deficit reduction that I previously proposed through the combination of spending cuts and new revenues. Now it's time for the other side to move from their extreme positions, because much of what they've already proposed is simply, quite frankly, unacceptable.
The Democratic president has reassured world leaders at the G7 that he would secure a deal over lifting US borrowing limits, known as the debt ceiling. Biden has pledged to continue negotiations with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, the most senior Republican in Congress.
There's no agreement on anything. We've all said our piece about where we are, and we're trying to find common ground to get this done.
Democrats want to increase the debt ceiling beyond its current $31.4 trillion limit. But Republicans are demanding deep spending cuts to reduce a growing deficit, including tying government-funded healthcare eligibility to work requirements. The Treasury Department warns that failure to lift the debt ceiling by June the 1st could unleash both a debt default and a US government shutdown, with severe repercussions for the global economy. Biden says he believes he has the right to invoke the US Constitution's 14th Amendment to essentially bypass Congress and raise the debt ceiling unilaterally. But some legal and constitutional scholars say this would take Biden into uncharted legal territory. Owen Fairclough, CGTN, Washington.
My colleague Go Ang spoke to Nobel laureate in economics Michael Spence, who warns that there will be dire consequences for both the U.S. and global economies if leaders fail to reach a deal.
A debt limit, also known as a debt ceiling, limits the total amount of money the U.S. government can borrow to pay its bills. This includes paying for the federal employees, the military, Social Security, and Medicare.
The limit must be raised to cover the spending approved by Congress. And the worst possible scenario is this doesn't happen, triggering a default. Earlier, I spoke to Nobel laureate in economics Michael Spence, who discussed the possible consequences of failing to raise the debt ceiling and the impact it would have on the U.S. and global economies.
It would just be catastrophic and unpredictable in its consequences. It would shake confidence. There'd be no safe asset. It would certainly diminish the status of the dollar as a reserve currency.
The U.S. government's current debt ceiling stands at just over $31 trillion U.S. dollars. That limit was hit in January, but the Treasury Department used extraordinary measures to make sure the government could still pay its bills. While some financial experts play down fears of a default, Spence says there are deeper concerns.
So there is an issue that's been talked about for a long time but never really addressed, which is the sort of longer-term trajectory of the liabilities of the central government in the United States, and we're kind of sleepwalking toward trouble, regardless of whether we settled the immediate debt ceiling issue or not. Now, if you ask me to forecast, I think there's enough people who understand, including people in the political system, who understand the consequences of defaulting, that I think there's a reasonable chance they'll find a way to settle it before we start experiencing cataclysmic outcomes. But maybe that's wishful thinking.
The U.S. government has never defaulted on its debt, but even coming close could have major economic consequences, as experts warn of panic among investors, credit downgrading, and market volatility for the global financial world. Gao Ang, CGTN, Beijing.
A recent investigation by the U.S. Labor Department found scores of manufacturers in the Los Angeles fashion district underpaying their workers. Some were getting paid what amounts to almost nothing. Our Edis Tiansen has more.
The state of California has one of the highest minimum wages in the United States at $15.74 an hour. But right in the heart of downtown Los Angeles, some migrant workers were being paid as low as $1.58 an hour, a scandal recently exposed by a Labor Department investigation.
In 2022, we conducted 50 investigations where we found 80% were in violation, and there was $892,000 in back wages to 296 workers. So that was more than 50% of our cases. We found that employees were not being paid, properly. Their wages were off the books. They weren't even showing, time cards, time sheets that were being falsified.
In an exclusive interview with CGTN, Labor Department officials confirmed exploitations were prevalent in scores of garment factories that produce items for well-known brands. Local workers say they've been aware of the labor rights violations for years.
Actually, most of the people on the garment industry in this area are not making the minimum wage at all. That's one of the most difficult things that we're facing now, and because most people are not making not even the minimum wage, and a lot of people are earning like $350, $300, which is enough just to pay the rent. So what about food, groceries?
In a city with increasingly higher costs of living, job insecurity is a concern among many LA residents, especially when it comes to undocumented immigrants.
Many times we often wonder why employees, don't come forth, and we get it. It's fear. It's many fears. Many of the folks are recent immigrants who arrived to this country and have no clue of even what the minimum wage is or what overtime is. And so we must continue to educate. We must continue to do outreach, and we can't do this alone. We have to do this together.
The Labor Department investigation also showed that people who purchase clothing labeled as Made in USA may unknowingly be supporting the exploitation of workers. Government officials say raising awareness about labor rights may be the only way to end it. It is Tian Shan, CGTN, Los Angeles.
You're watching Global Business. More stories to come. Kunming hosts special events to raise international awareness about the species extinction crisis.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global Business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business, only on CGTN.
The International Day of Biological Diversity is being celebrated in Kunming, southwest China's Yunnan province, to raise awareness of the rapid environmental degradation threatening 1 million animal and plant species. The event aims to promote immediate action to combat the alarming rate of species extinction. Our Yang Jinghao provides details on the special event and the urgent need for environmental conservation efforts.
These animals are some of the most iconic species in southwest China's Yunnan province, one of the most biologically diverse regions in the country and even the world. As the place that hosted the first part of COP15 in 2021, it hopes to draw public attention to the intensifying environmental crisis while stimulating coordinated action by sharing ideas and pragmatic steps forward. The event follows the adoption of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which draws a blueprint for global nature conservation in the next decade and beyond. The theme for this year is From Agreement to Action, Build Back Biodiversity, showing the urgent need to implement the landmark agreement to halt and reverse biodiversity loss.
I urge all parties to the convention to align with the framework, actively update the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, promote biodiversity conservation, restoration, sustainable use, and benefit sharing, and continuously improve the diversity, stability, and sustainability of the ecosystem.
The framework, adopted in Montreal in December last year, features 23 specific targets. One of the goals looks to achieve the conservation and management of at least 30% of the world's lands and waters and restore 30% of degraded ecosystems by 2030.
All governments must not only develop their national targets and their NBSAPs, they must put in place the laws, policies, and programs necessary to achieve them. Businesses need to assess and disclose their impacts on biodiversity and move towards sustainable practices.
The framework also highlights the importance of financial resources and asks developed countries to financially help developing ones.
Germany has pledged to provide 1.5 billion euros a year from 2025 for international cooperation on biodiversity to implement the Global Biodiversity Framework. And we do welcome that China, with the Kunming Fund, is also helping other countries, and welcome any support from China.
The event also witnessed the launch of several projects initiated by China, including one aiming to demonstrate how to integrate the conservation of biodiversity with the community development. Yang Jinghao, CGTN, Kunming, Yunnan Province.
To understand more about China's conservation efforts under the sea through the blue carbon trading market, we're joined by Shen Yiyang, Director of Inclusive Development Research Center in Beijing. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Shen. What are the potential opportunities and challenges for blue carbon trading in China, and how can it contribute to the country's climate goals?
Well, I think in this year, 2023, China have a very good, new system actually released by Ministry of Natural Resources, providing technical guidance for blue carbon development in China. This is the first time in China. And also, I think among all the countries, including both developed country and developing country, very few countries have this kind of guidance. What is more, also in this year, there's a first blue carbon project, come into the market and finish the carbon trading. And the carbon price is almost double the regular carbon price in China. This is also a very, promising for the country. However, I think as a new thing, the blue carbon is still new in China. There is a capacity gaps among validators and also advisory companies and also project developers. What is more, the market recognition of blue carbon is still need to be improved. I think in the future, China will be the largest blue carbon trading market in the whole world.
In terms of ocean conservation and biodiversity protection, how can blue carbon trading benefit China's marine ecosystems and support the growth of the ocean economy?
I think China's coast has been very well developed for the the so-called ocean economy. On one hand, like the fish farm, those kind of different kind of fishery activities. All the project developers they used to think this carbon issue to be a compliance issue, but now they are thinking from different way. They consider their new action as kind of an asset or carbon asset. So as we can see, the policy level and also the government already released the technical guidance, and also I think the commercial banks in China is now willing to support a lot of green projects like so-called blue carbon project. So and I think in the very near future there will be more and more such kind of project. This is, I think, it's a very good promotion of China's efforts on the ocean biodiversity protection, because in the three, area of blue carbon, which is mangrove, seagrass, and tidal marshes, in the three area, China can all, have new project being developed in the next 10 years, I think.
Tell us, compared to traditional carbon trading, what are the unique features and benefits of blue carbon trading?
I think this blue carbon is still a kind of carbon trading. It's if we compare the market price now, the blue carbon trading the price is much higher than the regular like green carbon from planting trees in the desert or planting forests in the mountain. But I think in the future, I think sooner or later, the price will be same, the effort will be same, but I think China will be the few country in the whole world has been spent quite some resource and also this funding for this new area.
Thank you so much for insight. Mr. Shen Yiyang, Director of the Inclusive Development Research Center in Beijing. How can innovative transaction models utilize blue carbon promote sustainable in marine environment? Our Ye Chiying has more.
A 1-year carbon sink accumulated in the inner port in the county's Huangbiao township was traded after rounds of bidding among more than 20 enterprises and institutions. The carbon sink, with a total volume of 2,340 tons, was sold for 244,000 yuan.
106元，最后一次。好，成交，恭喜我们的。
According to the executive of the buying company, the carbon sink is now going to be used as a reserve to offset the enterprise's future carbon emissions through their production processes.
We are very committed to green manufacturing, and so we are making efforts to save energy and reduce our overall consumption by using green resources.
The carbon sink comes from local marine life such as liver, seaweed, and oysters, and Huangbiao Township is going to spend the money on cultivating and breeding seedlings of green algae.
Both the cultivation of oysters and the trading of a carbon sink generate an income, so I can see a huge potential in ecological farming practices.
Blue carbon, also known as ocean carbon sink, refers to the process and mechanism of the ocean and marine life absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and storing it in marine ecosystems. This can then be used to offset any carbon emissions that are generated by enterprises or individuals. The successful trading of the carbon sink has shown a new way for promoting local marine sustainability. 叶池莹、周思佳 ZTV News for CGTN, Hangzhou, Zhejiang Province.
It's amazing. You do business and you also earn those carbon credits. That will do for this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. Thanks for watching. I'm Junjun Feng. CGTN will continue with more news and views. Stay with us.